You're on a 7300, so stick to the handheld mic. Anyway, let me make sure I got it. Yeah, so Mr. Paul, yes. Let's see, the forsythia are trying to come out here. The daffodils are definitely, you know, some of them have definitely gone by. My peach tree is, you know, swelling pretty nicely, so another 2 weeks probably that will be in full bloom. But, oh, the honeysuckles are, we have a lot of honeysuckle in our backyard that's kind of used as a border, you know, like a hedge, for lack of a better term. But it's a nice poisonous plant as far as you're not supposed to eat the berries, but it's a great pollinator for the bees, that's all. So they definitely appreciate it. They kind of grow wild all over the place here, so those are very popular, and they're starting to throw some leaves out. So yeah, we're definitely winning. But boy, we had 31 or 30 the other day, you know, overnight. So peas and beets and various lettuces and some spinach and that kind of stuff are all barely starting to poke their heads out of the ground. So stuff that I planted probably 2.5 weeks ago is finally starting to germinate. So soil temperature must be finally getting to the point where they're going to attempt a springtime run at it. But yeah, boy, so the first boat that not the first boat. First boat I had down here on the Cape was a 1949 Chris Craft mahogany speedboat, which was a great boat, and I certainly took loving care of it. But boy, what a pain in the neck having a wooden boat, that's for sure. So anyway, the second boat was a 23-foot cuddy cabin kind of runabout that had a Mercruiser 3.7 4-cylinder in it with an Alpha 1 outdrive. So I know all the ins and outs of the Alpha outdrive, that's for sure, having resealed them, you know, the upper and lower, and done all the bellows, and actually had all the tools, this little special sockets and everything, and the wiring that disintegrates on the trim and tilt senders there, you know. And boy, as far as I used to have a spare set of the hydraulic cylinders for the trim and tilt that every other year I basically would remove them and put the spare set on that had been rebuilt. So new end cap seals, and then I would etch prime the aluminum and then repaint it in the beautiful Mercruiser black, so you know it always looked really good. And even that boat was rack stored, so it used to live at a boatyard, but it would you know, come out and they would spray it down with fresh water and everything after the fact. And that engine was had a freshwater cooling loop in it, so the only thing actually that was raw water cooled was just the heat exchanger. Everything else in the engine, you know, was antifreeze. So, but boy, the aluminum, you know, especially those end cap seals and stuff, probably 2.5, 3 seasons you'd see them bulging. They may not necessarily be leaking fluid, but it was a constant maintenance. I can't imagine leaving one of those outdrives in the water all the time. And I have seen, you know, pictures of people, especially if they neglect to change the zincs and stuff like that on one of those. What an aluminum outdrive looks like after a few months in the water, you know, sitting in a boatyard with a little electrolysis going on. It's the sacrificial anode for the whole boatyard, needless to say. WA3VJB, KB1VWC.
KB1VWC, WA3VJB, yeah. Well, you can imagine the electrolysis that goes on when you put it in some brackish water, which is the Chesapeake Bay. A little bit of salt around the electrodes there and really gets things going. Yeah, I keep track of most of it. I agree with you about the wiring on the trim senders. I thought it was the disc and the brush that used to corrode. And the guy I have do the work on it every winter has either burnished it or cut back the wire and replaced it. If it's doing some wicking of the water, As it goes out, it seems like every other season, and I lose my trim indicator. But I can feel it pretty quickly what it's doing. What worries me, of course, is, if I don't have it pulled up and we run into some shallow water, that's not fun. I don't want to make a new channel. Gone through a skeg and a prop so far. I've kept an aluminum prop on there, Steve. People say, well, why don't you get a stainless steel prop? It's like, well, then it transmits all that shock up the outdrive, and it gets even more expensive than a prop would be. So I'll keep my aluminum prop on there, thank you, and let that be the sacrificial element. Although the skeg was kind of a surprise. I had a new one of those welded on the lower unit, too. Nicely done. And I don't think it does much except protect the prop from, really shallow stuff. Because you'll know it right away if you're up on a sandbar or whatever. I didn't know about the end caps being a vulnerability. I'm pretty sure mine get inspected as part of the general rundown. And I don't think he's ever done those. So I wonder what the problem is there, whether I should get a spare set of those hydraulic cylinders or not. And just keep them on the shelf ready to go so they could swap out. I did get an improved impeller in the thing, and it's a 4.3. I think you said yours was a 4.3 as well, the 6-cylinder GM engine. I've got a new style impeller that has flexible blades in it, flexible vanes, and it winds up being able to put the debris of raw water cooling through itself a little easier without chewing itself up like the stiffer original design impellers. So that was an improvement. And let's see, a new serpentine belt, that sort of thing, set of plugs. I went a little bit too long on my risers one year, and you know how the coaxial design of that thing can get a breach in it without you knowing it. And I noticed one of the cylinder plugs was nice and clean. And it's like, oh, that's a problem. So, yeah, we had to have that mitigated as well. And, well, but it's a 20-foot boat, actually 19 foot 8 inches, so the beam width is not as wide as a 20 would be, and it still fits in the garage as a result. But, hey, we've had it for 20 years ourselves, and if I treat it like a general aviation Cessna, then it helps to minimize the chance we'll ever get stranded. So far, that's been the case. I think I told you we make our celebratory trip every season to start the season out to Thomas Point Lighthouse. First of all, to make sure the lighthouse has made it through yet another winter, but also to provide some good juju for the coming boating season. And so that'll be my first shakedown cruise out to Thomas Point Lighthouse there, Steve. KB1 VWC WA3 VJB.
K1ETP.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to, sign in there, Richaroni. K1ETP acknowledged. WA3 VJB, KB1 VWC. Yeah, no, Paul, mine had you had the 4.3, you have the 4.3 Merc Cruiser, which actually is a very nice, the GM 350 with 2 cylinders cut off. I had a Merc Cruiser built 3.7 liter, 4-cylinder. So if you look this thing up, this thing was an aluminum block with a Ford 460 cylinder head bolted on the top, just one of the cylinder heads, so it was half of a Ford 460 with Mercury's own custom block, and the block itself was aluminum. And but again, the whole thing was freshwater cooled, running through the block. The only thing that was raw water cooled was, yes, there was an elbow at the top of the exhaust manifold that raw water, of course, exited at that point and down into the outdrive. You didn't change that. Yes, you could hydro-lock the engine or cook the engine. Overall, a really reliable engine. Not particularly quiet. In all honesty, their design there with an aluminum block, I think, kind of made it sound like you had a little Perkins diesel running in the back of the boat there. But yeah, no, I constantly had a problem with those end cap seals. Maybe they've improved them. I mean, it was an Alpha 1, but it would have been an original. I think the boat was an 83, somewhere around there. So they may have improved those hydraulic cylinders over the years to the point where now they don't have those issues. But yeah, you you'd look and you'd see there's a snap ring at the end of it that holds the seal around the rod. And actually, there's, of course, a special wrench that fits into the pinholes at the end of it, and that whole piece unscrews. That hydraulic cylinder part all comes out of the tube. And you would now take that out, and you would take the seals out, and you have to take the whole ram out and replace the end cap seals in there. So I was very adept at doing all that stuff, and again, that would be something that I would be doing here at this time of year, getting the boat ready to go for the season. But the bigger boat is just obviously a lot more maintenance to it, just because there's a lot more stuff on it. So tons of electrical stuff, water systems, and the diesel engine itself is quite reliable, and although I am changing its raw water impeller this year. And the way to do that is you just take the whole raw water impeller pump out of the boat. You don't even bother trying to do it in the boat because it's far too difficult to get to. So, maybe you'll see on the ABC Evening News that a early 60-somethings man was trapped in the bilge of his boat for a week or something like that before his wife called to say he was late for dinner, but who knows. Over to you there, Ricciaroni, K1ETP, KB1VWC.
Yeah, okay, KB1VWC and the group K1ETP. Boy, you guys are loud this afternoon. And Tim is 10 kc up, but he's kind of trashing the frequency here because he's he's also very loud. But Marina talk, go ahead and carry on. No longer being a boat owner, I don't have a lot to add to this granular discussion on outdrives. And Steve, I wonder how you made out trout fishing after you sent that picture. Any more? And how was the trout? So go ahead, Paul. Hopefully you're hearing me as well as I'm hearing you. WA3VJB and the group K1ETP.
Yeah, you're quite strapping. Well, I was going to ask Steve about the boat that he was doing the trout fishing in. So, Steve, tell us about both of those things. Go ahead.
Well, Ricciaroni, I didn't keep any of the trout, just to let you know. I wasn't really expecting to catch any great number of trout, so it was actually just last Friday going out to decide that, oh my God, I'm going to see if the little boat here runs, number one, and go out and have a little fun. I hooked 8, and I only boated 2, believe it or not, so I was definitely in very much rookie mode. One of them was actually quite large, and I got that to probably within about 3 feet of the boat, and it shook off. But that one would have been a more of a trophy-looking kind of trout than the others. The others were all like in the 14, 15-inch kind of range. So yeah, it was just a nice day to be out, on the water. It was calm. It wasn't really sunny. It was kind of sunny through a hazy sky. But that boat, Paul, is a the hull is a 71. It is what's called a Mohawk. It was built in upstate New York, probably north of Albany, maybe in the Troy area, somewhere up in there. In the late 60s, early 70s, they made some smaller boats up there. It has a 1967 Johnson 40 horsepower Electromatic, so it's got the electric shift on it, and a starter and a generator, not even an alternator, a generator, with a belt and a 3 relay regulator, etc., etc. And it also has a 1973 4 horsepower Johnson kicker, which was pretty much what I was using. Neither of them have been started since last fall, and I put the boat in the water and had the battery in it, obviously, and it cranked over within about 5 seconds. The 40 horsepower started up, and the 4 horsepower took probably about 10 pulls before it caught and got going. But the 40 horsepower, the 4 horsepower, I can just sit there and idle along in that thing, and the boat is barely moving forward, so it makes a very, very nice trolling motor that causes no electricity to disappear on the boat, because the 40 horse with its electric shift and the solenoids that control the gearbox draws about 2 or 3 amps of current continuously, and if you're letting the thing idle, the generator's not putting out any power, so sooner or later the battery gets kind of upset with you if you sit there and troll with that thing all day long. And not only that, the thing is a gas pig beyond all belief, so when you really open that thing up, boy, the gas gauge disappears quickly. And that's why you see so many of these boats around pretty cheap with older two-stroke technology on them that, 200 horsepower on a two-stroke, on an early two-stroke like that is lots of gallons per hour. WA3VJB and Rich-A-Roni, we're willing to discuss anything, especially with you. Beer, food. Apparently I insulted your wife. She's going to kill me. Anyway, WA3VJB, KB1VWC.
Yeah, I remember. I was in on that one. We'll see how Maureen takes it, if she got told or not. KB1VWC and K1ETP. WA3VJB making a transmission. Yeah, both you guys are really, really bone-crushing signals in here right now. I've got the house audio system cranked up, and the passband on the low side, because, yeah, Timmy's a little strong in here, too, right now, and splashing on down. It's amazing. I mean, he's on, 85? And just the other day, we were kind of beaten up on WA2CYT for a rather generous passband that he was transmitting. And, here's Timmy doing the same thing. Although I think the technical basis of it is different. And, yeah, I'm with Steve there, Rich. We could talk about anything you want. I like Exciter class beer. I came up with that last night when somebody questioned my drinking of a beer from Maine. It's like, well, it's an Exciter class beer. It just everything just came together. And I think I'm going to stick with that. Tonight will probably be one of my Boulevard whiskey barrel stouts. I love those things. 9% ABV, nice thick flavor to it. Oh, yeah. Sunday night, gonna redeem myself from missing church again for about, 12 years? No, longer than that. Maybe. Yeah. Good on the boat there, Steve. That's great. That's cool. I didn't realize those things suck that much current just for gear shifting capability, electric shift. Our family's first boat was a 65 or 66 glass spar that came with a 75 horsepower Johnson outboard that my dad suspected had been sunk. There was some rust tracings where there shouldn't have been underneath a weatherproof cover, and he thought it was sunk, so he traded that in on a 65 horsepower Mercury. I think it was a 67 vintage, brand new, and you could feel the power increase with even 10 less rated horsepower. The boat went faster, and that was a 15 or 16 foot. I think it was spec'd at 16 foot. I learned how to water ski on that one. And it just popped me right up out of the water, and it was a good boat. Had a covered bow, even at just 16 foot, and those back-to-back kind of seats. Classic, outboard design of the 60s. I don't think it had fins on the back across the transom, like some of them did, where you got a 57 Mercury of the same design to tow it with. You see these pictures at car shows where people have matched their old boat and their old car, which I always thought was kind of cool.
He said that Irish women can't cook. It was Rich himself who said this, not me. I was just reiterating the story.
Oh, I'll totally deny that, Steve. And, yeah, she knows. I told her, she says, well, I hope you stuck up, you stuck up for me. And I go, of course I did. So, you're left holding the bag there, Steve. Well, as far as the boat talk goes, I have owned a couple of boats. I own a sailboat that I got rid of just about the time you got into the boating craze, Paul, 92. But that same year, I picked up a Thundercraft IO. It was a 14-foot ski boat, and my kids were all, young teenagers then. and they were really into skiing. So I got the ski boat. It was a little six-cylinder, was it a four-cylinder? I don't remember now. God, that's so long ago. IO with the outdrive, and I remember every year pulling the outdrive for 2 years in a row. And I says, I'm not doing this anymore, because in order to get to some grease fittings, you had to pull the outdrive, which was a real pain to get back on by yourself. The thing was heavy, and the shaft had to be in a certain position for it to fit, and so I finally gave it to a local marina. Believe it or not, there's a marina that, well, it's no longer. There's a very small lake in Mendon, and they actually had a marina on it, and they worked on Mercs. So they did it for several years in a row, and then when the kids got too big to ski, I got rid of the boat, and I've been boatless ever since, and no real regrets. Just other people's boats when I'm in the mood. So, anyways, that was my foray into boating. But the problem being, where I live, I'm an hour from any salt water, no matter what direction I go in, which is either east or south. Can't get there in less than an hour. Even though if I go east, it's closer, but you know, you're going into Boston suburbs, and the traffic is just a nightmare all the time. And there's really no sizable freshwater ponds around here in central or eastern Massachusetts. You got to go way out to, western central Mass, to Quabbin Reservoir, and there's limitations on the size of motors you can have on boats there. So, really wasn't a lot of sense having a boat here in Milford, because I just didn't get to use it. When I had the sailboat, I had to drive an hour down and an hour back. And you get down there, and the weather's not good, or the winds pick up, and it just it just didn't turn out to be worth it. But my brother does have a little aluminum, I think it's a 12-foot, maybe it's a 14-foot, aluminum with a 4-horse Johnson on it. So I wonder if it's the same 4-horse Johnson. That 4-horse Johnson's got to be close to 50 years old. In fact, yeah, it's about 50 years old. And that's been on that little, it belonged to my father, and when he passed, my brother took it, because he used to fish a lot with my father. But that thing's just been sitting in his yard now for, I think the last time we took it out was 6 or 7 years ago. So probably all the boat wiring has to be redone, etc. and so on. But that motor, man, it just would start no matter what. That was a great, great little motor. 2-stroke, but very, very reliable. And it didn't have reverse in it. You had to flip the thing around to go backwards. And Paul, I've got one more Gunner's Daughters milk stout here. I find that particular milk stout a little on the sweet side, but yeah, it does have a kick to it, that's for sure. So I may finish that one off this afternoon. Anyway, I was up there watching the Red Sox game, and I just got bored with it. Even though they were winning, I just got bored with it. And they got another game tonight, because yesterday's game was canceled because of the rain, so they got a doubleheader. They got a 7 o'clock game going on tonight. So if I feel I got to get another baseball hit, I'll watch a few innings of that. But I could tell my wife was getting bored sitting there with her computer in her lap doing a crossword puzzle while I was watching the game. So I relinquished the TV set to her and came down here. So anyways, Paul, Maureen wants to know next time you're going to be in the Milford area. KB1VWC in the group, K1ETP.
K1ETP, KB1VWC. Do you mean me? The next time I'm going to be in the area? Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Oh, okay. You called me Paul in a senior moment, but that's okay. Geez, I don't know, Richaroni. We are going in a
Couple of weeks, March 27th, April. We're in April. April 27th, we're heading to Italy for 2 weeks to visit the boss lady's relatives, as well as do some sightseeing, etc., etc. So, won't be till after that, that's for sure. All hands on deck to get the watercraft in and other stuff ready for springtime here. But yeah, if that, or if you guys are going to come to the, take a ride to Falmouth Town before it really gets crazy for the summer, let me know, and we'll certainly get together and Maureen can teach Vicky how to, make a nice meal. That would be fine. She'll absolutely hate me, and that's okay. I'm never going to be able to defend myself because she won't. She won't know that you threw her under the bus, because I'm sure she doesn't believe that you would ever do that. So anyway, no, the 4-cylinder one, the 4-horsepower one that I have is always in gear, forward only. So it's probably the same. They had it was their entry-level engines, really and truly. I think they had a 2 as well, but it's a 2-cylinder, which makes it, be able to idle very nicely, which is the reason why they were kind of so popular. But, they made a really good product. That's really not the issue. The issue, of course, was, they're not the most environmentally friendly in today's world, especially, although back then they were a whole lot worse, but on modern two-cycle or oils, you can thin the amount of oil out and still not have a problem, running the thing whatsoever. So, although I have 2 tanks in that boat, one for the 40 horsepower and one for the 4. The 4 horsepower one is a tank off of like an old snowblower that I just permanently mounted to the one of the gunnels, and that one I run 32-to-1 mixture in it, even though they tell you can run 50-to-1, but I know there's no actual bearings on that engine. It's all sleeves. It's just bronze sleeves. So I felt it, a little extra oil isn't going to kill it, and it certainly, like I said, just like you said, Rich, they just run. They are amazing. They run quite nicely. The alcohol in the fuel has not managed to mess anything up yet. So, and the 40 runs with, like, a 6-gallon portable tank. And if you're like pulling water skiers and stuff like that with this boat, Paul, you probably got about 3 hours on a 6-gallon tank, and then you need to you either end up swapping the thing over to the little tiny 1-gallon tank that the 4-horsepower one uses and idling your way back to the dock, or you better have another 6-gallon tank with you, because when you're if you're pulling a load and you got that thing going, it chews through fuel like it's going out of style. There is no doubt about that. But it'll tops out probably about 31 miles an hour. So, it scoots right along, and it's kind of a tri-hull or a cathedral hull boat. So it's very stable for fishing, which is kind of why I like it. I had the whole boat. I got the boat for practically nothing with the 40 horsepower engine on it, and stripped it all down, flipped the hull upside down, and actually spray painted the hull with a 2-part epoxy paint. So it's a very nice cream color. And the top side, it's funny, I did the top side in red, and I used a cheaper paint for the red, and boy, oh boy, that lasted like a year and a half, and then it all chalked out, and now it's flaking off. So I'm going to have to, along with all the other projects I have, at some point in time I'm going to have to get that red paint off of it back to the fiberglass, and this time I'll use a 2-part, a paint with a hardener on it, and it will restore it back to its formerly beautiful glory, when everyone look at it and say, geez, where the heck how old is that thing? I've had that on lakes before. People have pulled up and said, How old are those engines on this thing? And, you know, you say a 67 and a 73, and they just shake their head and say, you know, geez, I just had to replace my, 1998 one because it, some fancy electronics on it died and you can't get the parts or something like that. So this thing's points and condenser. You can't go wrong. Just like the old Buick there, Paul. WA3VJB, KB1VWC.
You know, I was thinking the same thing. You must have read my mind. No electronics, no microprocessors, no fool injection. Man, KB1VWC, WA3VJB with K1 ETP on the side. Yeah, nice transmissions, both you guys. Well, I guess the boat was probably, for you, Rich, a family affair thing when the kids were learning how to water ski. So that makes sense. Our original boat that we got in 92 was a Renken, R-E-N-K-E-N, made in South Carolina. And that had a 4-cylinder GM in it with the Alpha outdrive. Fellow retired from Bethlehem Steel, which was a big Baltimore industrial complex on Curtis Bay. And he cashed out some of his pension and bought both a sailboat and a powerboat to figure out which one he wanted, which one he really liked. Wow, that's great. What a way to do it, right? So he decided on the sailboat, and none of the kids wanted the powerboat. So in 90 or 91, I picked up this 2-year-old Renken, which was a good boat. But it was a lot cheaper boat, construction-wise. And a very small fuel tank, had only a 10-gallon fuel tank. And that one burned a lot of fuel. I couldn't get more than about 150 miles out of it, cruising range. And on a Sunday after Labor Day, when the fuel docks start to have fall hours, because all the summer help has gone back to school, it's like, man, you better carry a spare tank with you. And it's a built-in fuel tank, so you have to ship the fuel with a spigot at a dock somewhere, pouring it into portable tank style. So yeah, I was reminded of that when you mentioned having like a reserve fuel tank on your 73, which actually could draw from the 57, just enough to get you home and idle. Because that's another thing I wish I had on either of the boats, including the one we have now. It's an auxiliary engine of some kind. Both of them are inboard-outboard type, so there's no transom to bolt an engine to. I suppose you could configure a bracket of some kind with an electric motor or, a small gasoline motor of some kind as a auxiliary trolling motor type of power plant, but we don't fish. The newest boat, brand name Stingray, also built in South Carolina, has carpet on the floor. And I've got some fishermen friends who make fun of me because there's carpet on the floor. They automatically say, no fishing boat has carpet on the floor. So I guess that kind of rules out fishing in the Stingray. And although Pam grew up with 2 older brothers and her father who all fished, and she learned how to bait a hook and how to de-hook a fish, she hasn't expressed a whole lot of interest in fishing. So I guess I'm on, I wanted to say safe ground, but that didn't seem to fit. I'm on calm waters about the fishing aspect of things because our boat has carpet. So I don't need a trolling motor necessarily, but just an auxiliary power plant. And I guess the way I've maintained things over the years has helped the reliability that I shouldn't need an auxiliary power plant. But there's just something about being a couple of miles out in the bay somewhere, and although there's a lot of people around that I could radio to, I don't know. It's one of those things that nags at the back. You always want to back up. Of course, like my comparison to general aviation, you don't have a backup propeller engine in the airplane. And I guess you can glide to a field somewhere, and I can always drop an anchor. Maybe that's the way I should look at it that way, too. I think as the boat gets older, that's more and more on my mind. It's a 2002, so it's a 23-year-old boat. And I got it when it was 2 years old. We traded the Renken in for it. The Renken was an 88. So we got a 2002 in 2004, and have maintained it fairly religiously ever since. And that, as I said earlier, has kind of guaranteed us a safe boating season. That and visiting Thomas Point Lighthouse, home of AM special event station K3L. I know I've told you guys about. First time was in August of 2001. Second time was a few years later. On board the lighthouse, 1.5 miles out in the bay. Boy, that was cool. And our boat was the conveyance for the generators, the Valiant, the 30L1, the R390, kilowatt matchbox. What else did we take? Food, provisions, and a ship of fools. So yeah, we sure love the water, Rich, and I guess I was trying to get at that with your family approach to things. When they outgrew it, you went on to other things. You know, one other story is my growing up period with family and boating. And we grew up in Virginia Beach, which not only has the Atlantic Ocean to go boating in at the bottom of the Chesapeake Bay, but also some inland waterways, one of them known as Broad Bay, which our neighborhood bordered up on. We didn't have a waterfront lot, but we could come around from the boat ramp back to our own neighborhood in the boat, which was kind of cool. So many years later, my dad was in his late 80s by this time. We took our present-day boat down on the trailer to my folks' place, and then went down, continued on to Virginia Beach for a day trip in the boat. Ice chest full of beer, just like the old days. Now I was old enough to drink it. Took our favorite dog with us, and just my dad, me, and the dog. And we went back to our old waters where I grew up in the 1960s. Now, my dad was not a big talker, but you could see by the look on his face that he was remembering all that. And it was all coming back to him. The shoreline, the water, you know, his 10-year-old kid learning how to water ski. And I tell you, it stays with me to this day when I start to think about the boating season. It's like, yeah, man, this is where it comes from. K1 ETP. Pardon me for getting nostalgic. WA3VJB with the group.
Yeah, all right, Paul. K1 ETP returning. Very good. Yep. Oh, yeah, I get nostalgic talking about summertime and boating. My family always had a place up in the lakes region of New Hampshire, a lake called Crystal Lake, which is just about 5 miles south of Alton Bay, a very southern part of Winnipesaukee. My grandfather, my father's father, a strip of land on Crystal Lake on the undeveloped side back in the 40s, and parlayed that into 3 lots, and sold 2 of them and built on 1 of them. And I can remember going up there as a young kid, like 10 years old, back in the 60s. And of course the grandparents, they were grandparents by then. They were in their 60s, and you know, no boat. They had They did have a boat. It was an old wooden rowboat, and the thing weighed, you know, a gazillion pounds when you're 10 years old. So I couldn't even drag it out from where it was sitting underneath the pine trees. So consequently, I just played in the water there off the very short dock, about a 12-foot dock. But after my grandfather passed, my grandmother moved the property over to my father, and he refurbished the place and built it big and turned it into a 3-bedroom cottage, and it's really a camp right on the water. It's about, I don't know, from the water to the camp was maybe 60 feet up on a hill. You had to climb up 60 feet. Had about 45 degrees to get up to the cottage, which was good because when the ice went out, you know, you didn't have to worry about ice doing any damage to the place. But by then, I was away. I was in the service then, but my younger siblings got to take advantage of it, and my father bought a ski boat, a Ski Right, I believe was the name of the boat, and it had a 40-horse Johnson outboard on it. And they all learned to ski off of that. And when I got out of the service in '71, I was using the place all the time, and I learned to ski off that boat also. And I can remember do about 28 miles an hour pulling a skier. And that was it. And we all longed for more speed, because everybody wanted to learn to, well, everybody was slalom skiing, but then people wanted to learn to barefoot ski or ski on shoe skis. And yeah, you're not going to do that at 28 or even 30 miles an hour. So fast forward again to the early 90s when I bought the Thundercraft. Now my siblings are no longer interested in the place. They've all moved away and have their own families, and I'm using it with my family, and my kids want to learn to ski, and they want a boat, so I bought the Thundercraft, and that thing would really boogie. It was a deep V hull, so it was great on the lake, and that thing would come close to 40 miles an hour with just me in it. So plenty of speed to ski and pull you know, rafts and tubes and things like that, and the kids had a ball up there. So once they all moved out and got older, my mother sold the place, and I didn't want to buy. I really should have bought it, but I couldn't really afford it because my son was getting old, just to start college, and was starting college, and I just said, you know, I don't need 2 mortgages, and she sold it outright, and you know, had money for her retirement, which was good, and she got a good price for it. And fast forward even a little farther, and now my son has befriended the guy that bought the place, and the guy rents it to him every summer. So we're back up there all these years later, the same place, and skiing off the same docks. Of course, they're now aluminum docks, but from the same point of the lake. I'm no longer skiing, but I'm pulling skiers, and I'm pulling my kids and my grandkids. So, I mean, you're talking 5 generations that have enjoyed the water off of Crystal Lake from that same point. So, how's that for nostalgia? And Steve, sorry I called you Paul. I have a lot of senior moments, you know, but I'm entitled to them at my age, so don't give me any baloney about it. And yes, you know, we may make a trip to Falmouth this summer. We haven't been there in a while. We kind of like Falmouth. They got some real nice restaurants there, and my wife likes walking around to the shops, and I usually go to the cheap T-shirt place and buy a half a dozen cheap T-shirts that say Cape Cod on them. And last time I was there, I actually bought a nice jacket. It was a rain jacket, it says Cape Cod on it, and I only paid $20 for it. And then we usually go down and illegally park at the beach and sit on the beach for an hour or so before we head back. But maybe we'll populate your place for a couple hours some summer afternoon in the very near future, Steve. So don't make any excuses that you won't be home. But I don't blame you if you do. And as far as the 4-horse goes, yeah, it sounds like the same one. You know, always in gear, starts on the second pull. And that was one of the boats that was up at the cottage in the 60s and 70s. And we had a 6-gallon tank on that thing. And that 6-gallon tank, that would last all summer. All summer. You may have to put some gas in it once. But, you know, somebody was up there every weekend using it. And that was the first boat any of the kids learned to boat in. And, you know, they were 12, 13 years old, tooling around in that little 4-horse out there on the lake. Since then, New Hampshire has instituted boat licenses, but only for boats over 25 horse. So during COVID, they offered it online. You usually have to go take it in person, a 1-day course, and then pass the test. But they let you do it online during COVID, so I snuck in there and took the course and got the license. So my son Andy and I are the only 2 people in the family able to drive a boat over 25 horse. And he has a 4 Winds now, my son Andy. It's a 4 Winds with a 115 Johnson on it. Old school Johnson. You know, none of this, not this four-cylinder stuff. I mean, four-stroke stuff, two-cylinder all the way. You know, oil feeding. KB1VWC in the group, K1ETP.
Yeah, K1ETP in the group, KB1VWC. Well, that would be fine, Ricciaroni. Wednesdays are the only bad days for the visitation rights, because the boss lady has very important grandson duties on Wednesday, so she's not around. But that would be great, and maybe you guys want to go for a boat ride on a 30-foot, you know, boat. It's quite nice, very luxurious. You'd enjoy yourself. We could just cruise around the bay, Wacoit Bay, and you can see all the million-dollar homes and that kind of stuff. We can have some Chardonnay on the back of the boat there, Rich. It'd be perfect for you. Anyway, as far as you were commenting on the Red Sox, way too early. I could care less right now. I mean, sometime in mid-July on a Sunday afternoon on the boat, I will turn the ball game on while laying out on the back of the boat or out on the front of the boat or clamming off to the side of the boat and listen to the ball game. But that's kind of my time frame for starting to pay attention to the Red Sox. And usually by then, I mean, at least the past probably, what do we got going on, 6 or 7 years here now, there really hasn't been a whole lot of reason to listen to them anyway. So anyway, like the Bruins this year, they are pretty pathetic. We'll have to see what they end up doing. But anyway, let's see, the other comment I was going to make. Lake Quinsigamond and Worcester, Ricciaroni, or Whitehall and Hopkinton. I think those were your two, you know. Quinsigamond's a big lake, and between Worcester and Shrewsbury there, right along Route 9. Goes all the way down to Route 20 and all the way up to 290, so I forget how many miles long it is, but that's where the WPI boathouse was for doing rowing. And I tried out for the rowing team there as a freshman, and I lasted all of about a month and a half, to the point where I was like, this is just ridiculous, because you would meet at campus and then have to jog down to Lake Quinsigamond, which was probably about 4 miles, and then you would work out in the sculls, and then you would turn around and have to jog back to the campus. And then on the off day, you lifted weights, of course. So, like I said, I lasted probably about a month and a half and was like, you know what? This really is not that much fun. I think I'm going to, like, go do something else, like grab my MG and see if I can go pick up some girls over at Becker Junior College or something like that, which is more than likely what I was up to. But anyway, yeah, that's a good lake, quite long. Hey, Paul, I'm thinking you certainly, if you trailered your boat down to the North Carolina mainland shores there and launched it, you certainly could scoot across that bay over to Ocracoke if you wanted to. I mean, it's about a 20-mile ride across, or 23 miles, or something like that. It's not ridiculously, not a ridiculous ride, I wouldn't think. And you know, in a boat of your size and speed, you know, what is it, a 45-minute ride or something like that if you're cooking right along? And the stupid bay is so shallow, it seems like. I can't believe, I'm sure it gets very rough, but it certainly, I can't believe it gets as rough as some of the inland bays around here. And as far as multiple engines go, no. As far as I'm concerned, it's like, you know, a single engine in your car, or like you said, a single engine in a commercial aircraft. As long as the thing is well maintained, you got nothing to fear. The chances of a catastrophic failure are just, you know, so small. And you know, mine's a single diesel, so once you get the thing started, you don't need any electricity. It just will sit there and run, because it's mechanically injected. It is not a computerized one, so it does smoke a little bit at idle, but you know, once the thing gets going, it's fine. And most of your commercial fishing boats are single diesels, you know, and they go hundreds of miles offshore without a particular problem. So, and you know, like I threaten my wife all the time. I ask her, "Is the insurance paid up?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Why do you ask?" I'm like, "'Cause if I'm 70 miles offshore and, you know, something bad happens to the thing, it's cut the hose and let it sink to the bottom as far as I'm concerned. Make sure everybody's in the life raft and ready to go, but get the EPIRB deployed and have a Coast Guard ride home." Anyway, I threaten that constantly. She gets very upset with me because it's named after her, so, you know, if it sunk to the bottom, it would have a metaphorical context to our marriage thing. WA3VJB, KB1VWC. I got one more because I got the 5-minute warning from the boss lady above.
Okay, I got you. 5-minute warning, just like they say ahead of the news conferences. KB1VWC and K1ETP from WA3VJB. And they get out of here too. Happy hour started 1/2 hour ago. I got one of the labs sitting here looking at me saying, "Hey, nope. There's the message from Pam right now. Let me tell her I am not yet drinking." That was her message. Oh, yeah. And I saved the quote here, Steve, where you said, "I threaten my wife all the time." I'll remember to put some context around it. But that's the quote. And, yeah, ball game, listening to the ball game on the radio. You know, this past week, I found a direction-finding radio on eBay that dates back to probably the early 70s. It's got the ferrite bar on the top, the old Marine band, you know, 2.8, 2.5, whatever that was, right above 160. And it goes through 4 megs, so I could listen to 75 meters. And the AM broadcast band with a telescoping whip off the top of it takes 4 D batteries. And this was a commercial grade DF radio meant for the boat. Aluminum cabinet, stainless steel hardware, $50. And I was going to do the same thing as yourself. I was going to use it to listen to one of the AM broadcast stations where my Collins 300G came from. WYRE Annapolis, 810 AM. Is right at the headwaters to Annapolis Harbor. And its single tower makes an amazing signal all the way to the south part of the bay, all the way to Virginia Beach at 250 watts. So I was going to, and they're playing a very good format right now. They haven't sold any airtime. So there's no commercials, and it's like our kind of music from the 70s and 80s. And you could just sit there and listen to it all day. And that was going to be my boat radio. And then I realized, well, gee, you know, I've already got one of those old multi-band shortwave radios that I got for Christmas in 1969 that works just fine. Why not use that, which also was used on our family's boat when I was learning how to water ski, so it keeps up tradition. So I messaged the seller back and I said, "Sorry, I got to pass. It's awfully tempting, because that's a cool radio, but nah, I'm set, I'm cool." But that's what we'll be doing with the 8-band Air Castle shortwave radio, listening to 810 AM, which now runs a little MOSFET rack mount transmitter in the base of the antenna hut. And yeah, Pamlico Sound is very shallow. And as a matter of fact, it is so shallow that I think I would run afoul of sandbars, not knowing where the channel is, if there is a channel. The most popular boat on the Pamlico Sound is the Carolina Skimmer, or Carolina Skiff. That's a brand name. Flat bottom boat, probably 22, 24 feet long, outboard motor that you can tilt right up out of the water, and you can just skim literally over the sandbars when you run across one of them, no problem. And our boat, being an inboard-outboard, I can't tip that outdrive up all the way. So I need 1.5 to 2 feet of water, especially if I'm up at speed. You know, where the outdrive is dug down a little bit because you're up on plane. So yeah, I've plotted that out, and it's not very far. It's certainly within range of the boat. But I think the logistics not being familiar, it might be kind of risky. I'd rather rent one of the guys' boats like we do when we're down there on vacation and perhaps take that across Pamlico Sound on their advice. You know, can I do this? Because I've actually got friends at Oriental, North Carolina, which is on the mainland. And he has invited me over. I used to work with him at the radio station. And they've retired to down there. And he says, come on over, take the boat over. It'll make it. It's not that far. So he has seen exactly the same logistics that you have, except for the sandbars that I'm a little leery of. So, I don't know, maybe one of these days. It's just too easy to come out of Ocracoke, head south to Portsmouth Island, which is uninhabited, and drop anchor and set up our beach chairs on the beach there at Portsmouth and not have anybody around us, let the dogs out, and just spend the day. So that's probably going to be the plan when we get back down there again, and it's been a few years. Our older Labrador Retriever wound up having a hard time with the heat in his last summer, 2017, that we were there. And we said, nah, spending all day on the boat's not good for this guy. Let's not. So we haven't been back since. He passed away in 2018, and these two that we have now have not been down there. So maybe one of these days that'll be the case. Other notes, yeah, Rich, 5 generations off Crystal Lake. That was a cool story. And it's so cool that your son has gotten back in touch with the guy who owns the place. I take it that's the same owner that your mom sold it to. That's great that he still has the property. And that's actually the best thing you could have hoped for, is to be able to rent it for a week or two and, you know, relive old times. Wonderful story. You mentioned top speeds. I think Steve's will do 40 miles an hour. You mentioned the Thundercraft at 40. The bay's usually got a 1.5 to 2 foot chop, so I don't get too much wide open throttle time. But when I do, or if I'm on one of the rivers like the Sassafras River, which is on the eastern shore, I've seen 50 with the newer engine, the 4.3 liter GM V6. And it's got a 28-gallon belly tank, which has tremendous range. I can get all the way up north of Baltimore or all the way down south to the Potomac River and still have fuel enough to get home. So that's a nice cruising range. I like that a lot. Very reassuring just to have enough gas. You know, everything's working fine. Boulder ran out of gas, said the Coast Guard report. Yeah. And yeah, we've got the same insurance, but for towing, not for salvage. It's a tow-in clause. It's worth it. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Boy, it's nice to hear both of you on here this afternoon. Conditions have been good. Signals have been strong. Plenty of elbow room, at least on the low side. It looks like those guys have signed for... No, they're not. They're still at 85. Okay. I'll look for you again, maybe during the week. K1ETP. Say hello to Maureen for us. Steve, say hello to Vicky. KB1 BWC on the side. WA3VJB will be listening out.
Yeah, all right, WA3VJB and the group K1ETV. I'll be real fast because I know both you guys want to go. But, no, the fellow that Andy rents the place from now is not the owner that my family sold it to. Once removed from that, they sold it to a doctor, and the doctor got divorced, and it really fixed the place up nice. Really went through it completely again, and it really, really looked nice. But he sold it to this other party, and when my son, my oldest son, was dating his to-be bride, they both went to a college at Plymouth State College in New Hampshire, so he took her down to Crystal Lake one day to show her around the area and show her the old cottage. And they were at the on the beach, which is right next door to the cottage. It's a small homeowners beach, the Lake Association beach, private. And he was showing her the cottage, and they were out in the dock at the beach, and the owners were out, the new owners were out on their dock, and they noticed that my son kept pointing to the place and was explaining it to the woman he was with. So my son noticed that they were noticing him, so he sort of walked over there and said, introduced himself and told them who he was, and they were very very happy to talk to him about the history of the place because they knew nothing about it. So my son filled them in on the history of the place, and they were, they spent a couple hours together. So my son departed ways, and he and Lori went back to school, and a couple of years later, they were married by then, and maybe more than a couple of years, several years later, he called the number, the old number of the cottage, and it still was the number that they had, believe it or not. And they happened to be there, and he talked to the guy. His name was Bernie, and asked him if he was willing to rent the place to him. And Bernie says, "Well, we don't rent it. We it's just family only. But maybe someday if I change my mind, I'll let you know." And about a month later, he called my son back and says, "You still interested in renting the place?" And Andy said, "Yeah." And that was 8 or 9 years ago, and they rented every summer for 2 weeks since then. And Bernie's now in his 80s, so whenever my son is up there, he does little repairs for him, does a little electrical work and stuff like that. And Bernie's very appreciative of it. So consequently, he gets it 2 weeks a year, and they even offered him to him weekends off season if they want to go up there, because it's a 4-season place now. And Steve, Lake Quinsigamon, yep. That's where Andy and I do the shakedown cruise every year on his boat. He and I go out, shake it down. And I'll tell you, that lake is one zoo, absolutely a zoo. And you don't even want to go near it on the weekend. But the gang from Worcester is out there on their skidoos, and they're boats that are too big and too powerful for that lake. And consequently, the Shrewsbury police and the Worcester police have boats on the lake too. And they're constantly pulling these people over. So I'm glad they're on that lake, because boy, if they weren't, it would be a hellscape as far as boating goes. So I'll let you guys go. Good hearing you. Enjoy your dinners and your drink. I think I might mosey on over to the basement refrigerator where the beverages are kept and help myself. So 7-3s. Catch up with you guys later. KB1 VWC, WAC VJB, K1 ETP.